Subject this morning is personal peace in a troubled world. Personal peace in a troubled world. Can we have peace? Peace within our souls in this troubled world. This subject was suggested by a Bible reference, St. John, the 16th chapter, the 33rd verse. And if you listen carefully, you'll see. You'll realize that you can have personal peace in spite of the tribulation of this world. These things have I spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. In the world ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. In other words, in spite of tribulation, in me, which means in Christ consciousness which Jesus manifested, there ye can have peace, in spite of all tribulation. Now the title this morning, Personal Peace in a Troubled World, presupposes that this is a troubled world, and it is. There is no question about that. It is a place of trouble and tribulation. We see it all about us. We see the paradoxes in life. We see, for instance, I always remember over to the greenhouse on Craxton when we used to plant the nice little seeds. Up would come a beautiful little plant, and it wasn't long before all the pests in creation, it seemed, began to descend on that little plant and cause it trouble. And so it is with other things. Children. Some children are healthy, they can stand anything. Others, from the day they are born, they're sickly. Some live a long life, some live a short time. And also with grown-ups. Some of the most intelligent people, finest people, find it difficult to make even a living. These are the paradoxes which cause us all the trouble. And then on top of that, as if we haven't enough trouble amongst ourselves, we have war. We have a world war, and then in a few years we have another world war. And after the Second World War, there is no peace among nations. In all the countries, we find unrest, especially in Europe. And so this world is a place of tribulation, of trouble. I remember one instance that always stands out in my mind. It is this, that when I graduated from college, I thought, this is it. Everything is fine. Then came the state board. And I said, if I get by this, why, I know everything. That's all I care, as long as I somehow get by that state board. I got by it. Then I found out the troubles had just started. I had to set up myself and practice. And of course I had to get married. All those things came about. Not that I say the tribulation came with marriage, but it helped a little bit, as I remember. In fact, this world is that way. Because it's made of duality of consciousness. It isn't a consciousness of the unity of God's presence. Now, the point is this. All these troubles, especially wars and so forth, come because of mass count. That is, there are many boys that go to war and they don't want to go to war at all. But they have to go because of mass count. Remember. And we suffer because of mass count. And there's not much we can do about it. Because it is there. Much will be done about it until you change the hearts of men. And that'll take quite a while. But as far as individual karma is concerned, we can do something about it. We absolutely can do something about our individual karma, as it says in the scripture. These things I have spoken unto you, that in me ye might have peace. And so we absolutely can surmount our individual karma. And so we should be rich rather in spiritual treasure than in material things. Now, in ordinary life, money grows by investment. You invest money properly and it grows. And so the peace of God grows the same way if you invest it in regular and proper meditation. We should have long nightly meditation so that we can increase that peace of God, which is the only reality. God gives us everything, and He wonders why we love Him so little. He gives us everything. And so it is with nations. What do they want? They don't want spiritual things, except perhaps America. They want material things. They want money. And that's why they suffer war. And so just these few words about mass karma. Do not think too much about it, because you cannot do much about it. But as far as your own individual peace and personal peace goes, you can absolutely do something about that. Now we hear about war. The fear of war is with us all the time. The threat of an atomic war. That is with us. We cannot escape it. It keeps us disturbed, no matter how much we try to forget it. But we should remember that God in an instant can blow this whole creation back into Himself. Now about atomic bombs, by boring into the uranium atom, just think of it, by boring into the uranium atom, such a tremendous power is released. Power of the atomic bomb. We have illustrations of that in Hiroshima, in the explosion of the many atomic bombs, and the new atomic weapon. But one thing we forget is this, that by boring into the spiritual eye, we can control the energy of the whole universe. Remember that. And when you do that and unite yourself with God's consciousness, you will never worry about an atomic bomb. And so welfare, or rather warfare, goes on all the time. Warfare goes on all the time. Warfare continually, with pests and bugs coming upon us, all sorts of things. And in the body, there's a terrific battle going on, the battle of bacteria. And we see evidence of this in the current epidemic, so to speak, of virus infection and cold and so forth. This goes on all the time. And as I said, to make matters worse, we have wars periodically. And so this thing will go on. Tribulation will be there, so let us forget it. Because as long as we have outward consciousness, as long as there is a duality of consciousness and lack of unity of God's consciousness, these tribulations will go on. And that's why in the Gita it says, Lord Krishna says, get out of my delusion. Get out of my delusion. Get out of my mind. Then you will escape the laws of birth and death. Because the delusion is in outward consciousness, not in the unity of God's consciousness. But in that unity of God's consciousness, we will find peace. As it says in the Bible, in me, ye shall have peace. So the only escape from tribulation is in the superconsciousness of God. We must realize God. Then you know. When you realize God, then you know these things are true. You know that the outward consciousness is changing and passes away. And when you enter into the cosmic sphere, then there is no danger there. And so as the Master said once, he said, you must realize God by throwing your body into the beam of light. In meditation, you see the light, throw your body, forget your body, into that beam of light. All bodies melt into his consciousness. Because God has created all things from his one consciousness. So we suffer. We suffer why? Because we love the body more than the soul. We suffer for that reason. And in the daytime, what do we have? We have the memory of the body. We cannot escape it. It is a nuisance. Why? Because it keeps suggesting to us these things which cause tribulation. That the body may be hurt, that it may be diseased, that the war may come and the bombs affect it, and that we may lose our house and we can't have a place to put the body in. All those suggestions are there. They come all the time to remind us that the body is transient. And so the memory of this body is a nuisance. But when you concentrate upon the soul, remember, know the soul. There is no death because the soul does not pass away. Soul is eternal. And so everything comes from the one light of spirit. Everything comes from that. And when you have that realization that everything comes from his infinite light and consciousness, then, as the Master used to say, such a great peace will come over you as you understand this cowboy fight, as he calls it. Cowboy fight that goes on all the time. But knowing that there is one light of God and from that all things come, then great peace will be with you. And so we should develop willpower that we may establish our stability in God. We must develop that willpower. That we establish our stability, that we do not lose our peace. The Master used to often say to me, never lose your calm. Not come home frustrated. He'd say, never lose your calmness. The yogis always watch that. No matter what happens, they never lose their calm. So we must do that. We must practice these things. And especially self-control gives peace. Self-control gives peace. Why? This is important. In self-control, the mind is withdrawn from the creative impulse, and the love of God takes its place. That's a very important point. In self-control, it is that creative impulse which keeps us attached to outward consciousness. That's the strongest thing. But in self-control, the mind is withdrawn from that, and in its place we find the love of God. So you see how wonderful the teachings of self-realization are. They give you the method whereby you can withdraw the mind from the things that keep us attached to outward consciousness and prevent us from enjoying personal peace in a troubled world by withdrawing the mind and allowing the love of God to take its place. And so the work of self-realization is very natural. You follow the techniques, the Hong Sa technique, which separates your consciousness from attachment to the body, and then the Om technique, which helps you to place that consciousness on the presence of God within you, and the Kriya technique, which is the highest, which helps you to completely withdraw from outward consciousness that you may have the personal peace of the presence of God within you. And that's why I like and do still like self-realization so much. Because it takes you away from the binding things as the creative impulse in a natural way. And it gives you something far greater, the love of God in its place. You don't have to worry about anything. Don't get worried if you have habits and lack self-control, just love God. Do your exercises. You will find that He will come and replace all those things that tied you to the body. Self-realization techniques are surely a special dispensation for all of us, that we may rise above those limiting aspects of consciousness that keep us tied to outward things and prevent us from realizing personal peace in a troubled world. Now going on, this love of God must be paramount. Love of God must be paramount. Because when that comes, it transmutes creative impulse into a great power of body, mind, and will. There is no question about it, because there's no power on earth equal to the love of God. And that's what takes place within you. When you feel that, no one can take away your peace. And so personal peace can come even in a troubled mind to all of those, as it says in the Bible, who are stayed in Him. To all of those who love God and then are fixed in that, personal peace can absolutely come. We have one or two scriptural references I'd like to read. The most wonderful. Isaiah, the 9th chapter, the 6th and 7th verses. His name shall be called Wonderful, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. God is peace. God is not something far off, intangible. He's the absolute, the greatest peace you can have. Then it goes on to say, of the increase of His government and peace there shall be no end, because God is eternal. There's no end to His consciousness. If He is peace, if He is love, and you merge in that, there's no end to what you can have. And then in Isaiah 26, chapter the 3rd verse, we read, Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on Thee. That's the point. Not just a little flourish and touching of God, but you've got to be one with Him all the time. Be one with His consciousness. This is so because He trusted in Thee. We trust in all other things, people, outward things, money, and so forth, and we forget God, who is the cause and end of all things. So, those who trust in Him and are stayed in Him, He gives perfect peace. And in Isaiah, the 32nd chapter, the 17th verse, the work of righteousness shall be peace, and the effect of righteousness, quietness, and assurance forever. That's the important. Personal peace, not for today, not next week, not this year, but eternally. When you feel the presence of God and you know He is with you, not just for now, but always, you will feel greatest peace, greatest calm. And so, we have to rise above worldly consciousness into the unity of consciousness of God. Because why? In worldly consciousness, there will never be any peace. A little satisfaction from the satisfying of desires, that's all. But there's no peace lasting except in the unity of God's consciousness. One other reference here in Corinthians, 14th chapter, 33rd verse. And this is important. For God is not the author of confusion. That's the point. People blame God for everything that happens. He is not the author of it. The author of confusion is that we are attached to His duality of consciousness in this worldly creation. That's the cause. So God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. Peace as in all churches of the saints. That is, you find the peace of God in the churches where they contact God, where you find the peace of the saints, the communion of saints, as you find in this church. And finally, St. John, 14th chapter, 27th verse, and this was most loved verse of the Master. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world giveth it. give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. And so, how to attain this peace? How to attain the peace of God's presence? Master always said to me, he said, when you are in the Om vibration at this point, when you are in this consciousness, nothing can touch you. Nothing can hurt you. Because you are surrounded and protected by the high voltage of God's superconsciousness present right within the body. And when you have that, when you are in His presence, no harm can come to you. Nothing can disturb your peace. And in closing, I'd like to give you one or two of the Master's words when he says this. He says, when one loves God, and remember, this is very important, when one truly loves God and is really spiritual, then not only personal peace comes, but glory to everyone. Glory to your father, to your mother, to your wife, to your husband, to your brother, to your sister, to your friend. Not only personal peace, but glory to everyone who is related to you. That's the power of God. So you can see personal peace in the troubled world is possible and can come. But not only that, personal peace can come, but you can stand unshaken amidst all disease, amidst all atomic bombs. As the Master used to say, amidst the crash of breaking worlds. Let us sit upright for a moment. Do not lose this presence of God which you feel now. Heavenly Father, I thank Thee for the realization that I can have peace in this troubled world. And I realize that to know Thee, to be one with Thee, to be stayed in Thee, is my salvation. And I thank Thee, O Father, that the beloved Master has brought the way and is the channel of Thy peace.